The 23 chromosomes that we are made out of form the organs and glands of our body. Okay? The 23 chromosomes come together and they form, and pretty soon the fetus develops, and when you're born you have, if you're like most people, you have 23 organs and glands. Now, because we have a male and a female gender, and each gender has an endocrine system specific to itself, this 23 turns into 24 because we have to include the male and female aspects. So we've got these 24 organs through which the body emotionally is being stimulated. When you have a conflict, the emotions flowing through the body, the brain is active, the nervous system is active, and sometimes when you have an emotion, if you're fearful, maybe your body responds by getting jitters in your stomach, or if you're fearful, maybe your heart starts to beat faster, or maybe you start to perspire profusely. So the body responds to emotion. Does everybody agree? Right? Everybody's experienced that. You get nervous. Things happen in the body because of emotions. So what we did is we numbered these organs from 1 to 24. Organ 1, and then ending with organ 24 is, each of these numbers, 1 through 24, is specific to an organ. So organ 1 would be the thymus. Organ 2 is the heart. Organ 3 is the colon. And then comes the stomach. And then the anterior pituitary. And then the liver and the lungs and the sex organs, reproductive organs, bones and muscles. We have the thyroid. We have the veins and arteries. We have the brain. We have the adrenals. We have the mind. We have the hypothalamus, or the senses, right, that controls our 5 senses. We have the kidneys. We have the endocrine system, male and female. We have the skin. Skin is the largest organ. We have the pancreas. Actually, kidneys also includes the bladder. We have the posterior pituitary. We have the parathyroid. We have the spleen. And we have the lymphatic system, the immune system. Whenever you're having an emotion, the electrical charge, the energy in motion, will flow through the body, and it will stimulate the cells of that body in one of these organs. And every organ has an electromagnetic function. Some organs act as transponders, some organs act as batteries, some organs act as conductors, some organs act as relays. Every organ has an electromagnetic function. And so what we're doing is we're looking at the electromagnetic flow in the body, the energy flow. And we're able to measure by intensity of heat how long ago that emotion or that energy influenced those cells. Much like we can look back in space and identify through the heat that's being radiated through space how old a star is, or how old the universe is. Right? Everybody with me? So heat, being one of the forms of energy, we're able to measure it. The more recent the trauma, the more charged that cell will be. So we know it's how frequent and how recent it was. If it happened long ago, then that heat will have been dispersed. There'll still be an electromagnetic charge in the cell, but the heat will have been dispersed and it'll be cooler. And so that cell would then, we'll know that it took place, in the past. And we can actually measure specifically the years in time when you had a stimulation and a trauma. Okay? And we'll know the concept of the trauma. So if you're at age 3, you've been molested, well, the sex organs will show up on the cause side, and how that's affecting you in the present. Say it's organ 19 on the effect side. Organ 19 sets our boundaries. Organ 19 defines who we are, where we end and the outside world begins. It's our boundaries. So you're having problems with your boundaries. You're not able to set healthy boundaries for yourself, or you're too strict in your boundaries. You know, or maybe it's kidneys, fear. So for every organ, there's an emotion tied to it. So for the kidneys is fear. So if sex organ shows up, and let's say with organ 8, it would be, the emotion would be apathy, one of the emotions. There's a low emotion, a mid emotion, and a high emotion, depending on the frequency of the emotion, the intensity of it. It will fall into one of these ranges. And everything is frequency. Everything has a frequency. Everything. Frequency equals form. So whatever the frequency is will determine what the form is. So this pen takes on this form because it has certain frequencies that dictate this form. And then the form dictates the function. So we're looking at the frequency. We can see the form of the energy, what it looked like, what it felt like, what it sounded like, and we can see how it's operating as well, what the function is. All because we are able to tap into the frequencies of your being and translate it. And depending on what organs involved, we'll know what emotions were tied to it. But the reason these organs are in this order, I wanted to bring that up, is because what we've determined is, we've established through our research on victims of radiation poisoning, victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, all these individuals who have had radiation poisoning, we discovered that the body will break down in the face of radiation in a specific order. Meaning some organs have a stronger propensity to withstand radiation than others. So the thymus is the weakest organ in the face of radiation. It breaks down. It's also our first line of defense, what we call a shield. And when the second organ to break down is the heart. And it goes on like that, the colon, the stomach, the anterior pituitary, the liver. And as we are exposed to more radiation, these organs in this sequence will break down and deteriorate. Finally, the lymphatic system, which is our immune system, is the last organ to break down in the face of radiation. Our immune system. It's the strongest. The body responds to stress exactly the way it responds to radiation. Radiation is stress. That's what causes the organs to break down. Stress is radiation. Whether the stress is financial, whether the stress is physical, whether the stress is emotional, whatever the form of stress, whatever the form of it, you can bet that its function is to break the body down and make us dust, to drive us back into dust. Because we live in a solar system where the sun drives is radiation, is our main source of radiation, and that radiation is energy, and it's what propels the Earth to spin on its axis. It propels the planets to evolve in their orbits. That radiation is a driving force. That form of energy is a driving force of every form of life on this planet. Us included. So when we rotate around the sun 365 days, the computers, our biological computer, clicks. One more year has passed. There's a programming in our code, a programming code in our DNA that says that we're going to live X amount of years. So many times around the sun, and then that's it. There's a programming in our code that not only establishes how long we're going to live, but what we're going to experience while we're living. And so we're exposed to this radiation from the sun, and it's running the program. It's the program, it's the central processing unit of the computer. It runs, without the sun there'd be no life. And so we're programmed, our Creator whoever that was, designed us with this code that perpetuates itself to energetically create realities that are emotionally driven. Is everybody with me on that? When we have experiences and the organs are responding and that energy is being called forward once again, what we end up seeing is what we call the chain. Now it's a chain of organs. Also, we call it the sequence. It's a sequence of your life. So at any given moment, one of these DNA codon programs are running. And so if we took a snapshot of you right now, we took a snapshot of you an hour later, a week later, a month later, we'd end up with an image of what organs are presently the strongest frequency that's being broadcast, creating your reality. And so if we have organ 4 in the core, which is the stomach, and somebody give me a number, favorite number.
12.
We have organ number 12 on the cause.
16.
16 on the effect. Okay. So we have stomach, we have brain, and we have kidneys and bladder. So stomach is all about the will. Our stomachs, when we digest food, our stomachs exert our will over the will of the food. Because that life form that we're eating has a program of its own, a will of its own, to be a carrot, or to be whatever it is. And when we put it in our stomach, we have to apply our will to break it down through the process of ionization, taking apart all the molecules, all the electrical charged particles, and then the liver, let's make liver next to it, organ 6, is responsible for putting it all back together on our frequency. So the stomach is the will. It's about nourishing ourselves, being happy. Okay? The liver is about changing what you get, the carrot, into what you want, a cell for the heart. Okay? So the liver is all about transmutation, being able to change what you get into what you want. Organ 4 is about being able to exercise your will against the opposing will that you face in life. Give me another number.
13.
13? Let's put 13 over here. Give me 2 more numbers.
7.
8 and 7. We always start with the core. This is what we look at first. And then we go to the cause. So this is organ 12, the brain. The brain and nervous system, this is organ 12, controls and communicates with our body. It organizes information. Everything that comes into, all the information that we absorb through our senses, the brain has to organize it and then direct all the different electrical charges to tell the body how to respond. So when we can't do that, things get complicated. So something happened at, let's say, this child's age 3, that was so complicated, it created nervousness. Organ 12, the brain and nervous system, created nervousness, and they become conditioned then to expect to meet with nervousness and complications. They don't have the answer, the solution at age 3 to resolve that conflict. They don't know how to find the solution at age 3 to uncomplicate it. So the conditioning, the program is that they believe that they're familiar with and comfortable with being in a situation, attracting people, being around people in circumstances and events that cause complications and nervousness. And then organ 8 is the sex organ. So it's about being able to be on purpose. The purpose of the sex organs is to be creative, to create, to give new life, to reproduce, to attract. The sex organs attract so that we can have relationships, intimate relationships with individuals, and create a new form of life. Have an intimacy and through the sex act to create new life, to be creative. And that's the purpose of the sex organs, is to be creative. So their ability to be creative met with these complications, and the low emotion for organ 8 is apathy. you can't create and express and be on purpose. And so it's like, well, who cares? You know, you try doing this again and again and again, and you meet with complications all the time. And then the next organ is liver, which is sadness. When you're not able to change what you get into what you want, it makes you sad. Liver is all about transmutation. So whatever's happening on this side of the chain is the cause side. And the cause always holds the core in place. It's the anchor. So the core, where your strength is. So this individual came into this world with a very strong will, but met with people, places, circumstances, and events that caused complications. So his will, as many times as this person would try to overcome, it was so complicated, it's too much to deal with. I just don't care anymore. It makes me sad, but, you know, I don't have the will to change it. So that's the cause. Now, what it looks like on the effect. Organ 13 is the adrenals. This is all about courage. To be able to meet resistance with an equal but, you know, opposite force. Courage. And so, on the effect side, he's meeting with people, places, circumstances, and events, attracting these conflicts into his life, and constantly being called upon to exercise courage. But he isn't able to do that. He lacks the courage to meet resistance with an equal force so that you can be proud rather than be the coward. Okay? To face life with pride rather than face life as a coward, because you can't do anything, you can't use your will to make the changes that you want, to stay on purpose, fulfill your purpose, and keep life simple rather than complicated. So then the next organ in this chain is the lungs. Organ 7. See, and every time we take a breath, we're refreshing the body with life-giving gas, oxygen. Lungs is also about monotony. You breathe in, you breathe out. You breathe in, you breathe out. Over and over and over again. It's monotonous. When it's a strength, then, you know, you don't have to put a lot of effort into something. It just, you know, it's easy. It's as easy as breathing. And the next organ is organ 16, which is the kidneys and bladder, which is all about fear. When the kidneys process emotion and the kidneys process toxins, it rejects the things that the body no longer needs. And when we're not able to do that because things are complicated, creating nervousness, then the effect of that is this fear. You see, not being able to change what you get into what you want, being on purpose, creates this fear in life. Cause and effect. And so this is kind of how it's all pieced together through the organs. We call this a sequence of organs. It's also called a chain because these are the chains that bind us. It's also a chain because our DNA is a chain, and we're looking at the sequences in the DNA energetically, what the imprints are. We have this ability to see into this field where all things are created and come together, see how the energy comes together, how these energy packets come together, and then how they come apart. This is the process of ionization, energetically. How our lives come together to be what they are, and how it comes apart. Any questions? Yes?
So with this information, where do we go from here?
Okay, so with this information, the way this works is phenomenal because it's not about doing anything. You don't have to do anything to release these energies. Just knowing what a chain looks like, that knowledge, that information will allow those energies to discharge. the electromagnetic force that is holding this information in your cells is locked into this sequence, into this chain. And there is a law in physics that's called the law of assimilation and dissimilation. And what that states is that if there's a closed system, and we're all closed systems, in a closed system, in order to maintain integrity, when you're trying to take it apart energetically, and that's what we're trying to do, is take apart the energies in our bodies, release those energies in our bodies that are attracting stress for us. In order to do that, you have to do it in the reverse order in which it occurred. This is the law of assimilation and dissimilation. So when we look at a person's chart and we have the ages, we can see the order. We can see the order that this stress pattern, this frequency, we can see the order of it. And so we always start with the most recent year. So if our change shows up and only the ages from 33 to 3 appear, then we start with age 33. And so we'll look at age 33 and see what dichotomy is operating. What emotion is involved? The organ. We see the function and malfunction of that organ. And we can see how it relates to age 33, what happened, what the concept is, what the emotional charge is. We can see how it relates. And what we do is we go through a process of addressing, this is where we go from here, of addressing each of these ages until we unravel that DNA chain that holds this information in sequence, where it's constantly broadcasting out energies to attract people, places, circumstances, and events that create the stress in your life, that create the sickness, the disease, the discomfort. Okay? Once we discharge it, those energies are gone. And they'll never, ever, from here to eternity, ever be part of your energy matrix again. Because once you become aware of something, you can't become unaware of it. Once that consciousness is revealed, then you know it. That information is part of your database. So this is all about being conscious, not doing consciousness. You can't do consciousness, you be conscious. And this tool gives us the ability to be conscious of the invisible belief systems and the unconscious programming in our DNA that make up who we are and what our lives look like.
So that explains my experience in having participated thus far in doing this. Is that I feel I'm having an experience in moving forward and releasing and reaching levels that I seek to achieve.
That's right. So when it's not that you're doing anything, you're just...
I'm having the experience.
You're having the experience.
And then having the awareness.
Right, through the awareness that those discharges come. There's this line of infinity that goes from infinity past to infinity present. This is light. And we're moving along this path like this, having our highs and lows in life. But the ideal is to be as close to this path of information, of knowledge, of peace, of bliss, as we possibly can. Being one with the source, being full of light, having full knowledge and consciousness, being in control of our creative forces, so that we can manifest the Christ being of who we are, rather than living in our stress pattern.
Did you say that number 14 was mind?
Yes.
It's interesting that you listed them as organs and glands, but why wouldn't that come under the brain since it's not an actual physical?
Well, the brain is the physical component, and the mind is the energetic component. It's the frequency.
But it's not, that's what I'm saying.
Every cell has a mind, the consciousness.
Why wouldn't that be the last one then, the strongest of the...
No, because it can be penetrated. When you use, in fact, you see here I have to go from age 15 to age 30. This is a 3-year pattern, for instance. Well, when you start interfering with the healing process or the growth process, not addressing things in the sequence, reverse order, what happens is if you have a sequence like this and you start looking at this issue here and you start delving into different psychic games or hypnosis or psychotherapy or drugs or anything that affects the psyche, the mind, what you get, you create a black hole. The energy pattern, the frequency is no longer has integrity. You've now created a vacuum in there. And this is why we don't see age 18 show up here. It skips from age 15 to age 30 or whatever the ages might be. The pattern is interrupted, and this is what we call a black hole. And everything gets pulled into this vortex. So the mind can also be penetrated with these energy entities. See, when you understand about life force energy, you have a whole new respect for all these different programs that we're playing with, because they will create an impact energetically on your light body, and we can measure it and even tell you what the concept of was when that occurred. When energies are penetrating our being, you see, only one entity, all of Krishna is all about space and pressure. And only one energy entity can occupy a space at a single time. Only I can stand in this spot at this moment in time and space. You can't stand in this spot. You can stand next to me. Only I can occupy this space. And when we start bringing in energies through different modalities, these forces come into our being. And they try to establish a place of, they become parasites, energy parasites. And they're trying to take over this space and operate in this space. And sometimes consciously or unconsciously, we allow that to happen. And it will create a real mess in maintaining the integrity of who you truly are at a core level. We have